Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour's fourth installment of our NFL quarterback series. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. We're about ready to get into the AFC South. Are you ready?
I am ready. We'll be halfway done once we finish the AFC South. This has been, I think, a lively but very lengthy group of previews, which I hope will continue, but maybe we'll try to. One of our goals was to go faster through these, but we'll see if that happens in the AFC South. I think the NFC South, which you did last time, was particularly odd and also particularly irritating towards me because Taysom Hill kept popping up, and he is apparently my least favorite player in the NFL right now because I just have to think about him all the time.
I know I did bring him up just to annoy you. At least two other times.
Maybe
it was unnecessary to bring him up.
Maybe we'll find somebody like that in the AFC South, but I don't really think so, especially not with the Texans, because their quarterback situation seems to be one of, at least at the top, one of the most stable.
We do have some characters we're going to cover now, I think, too.
We do. But number one player, of course, number one quarterback on the Texans, and somebody who is probably due to be receiving a very large contract maybe in the next few months, if not sooner, is Deshaun Watson, number 12 overall pick in the 2018 or
2017.
The 2017 draft.
Yeah.
He was drafted 2 picks after Patrick Mahomes. He was probably favored to be drafted before Patrick Mahomes by most teams. I think that's when the Chiefs moved up. I think a lot of people thought they were going to pick Watson. But Watson, who was a great quarterback at Clemson, has proven also to be a very good quarterback at the NFL level, if not quite Mahomes level, but led his team to multiple playoff appearances. In 2019, he threw for almost 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks. He's also great running threat, rushed for over 400 yards, 7 touchdowns. So he is entrenched as the starter of the present and of the future, I think, for the Texans. How would you feel if you had Deshaun Watson as your starter as a Texans fan?
Yeah, you'd have to be pretty overjoyed, really. He's still 4th year in the league, only 24 years old. He's been healthy the last year. A little bit of worry, I think, in his first season.
You do worry because he is a slight, at least maybe in build in some ways. He's not tiny like Kyler Murray or somebody like that, but he isn't quite as burly as Mahomes is either, and he runs the ball more. I wouldn't worry about Watson maybe as much as I worry about Lamar Jackson, but
well, he's not running quite as much as
no, he's more of a threat to throw. He's a throw first. He's maybe gonna hold the ball a little less long than Mahomes will. But yeah, I think he's a pass first quarterback.
And from the Deshaun Watson perspective, he probably thinks he's probably somewhere close to where Mahomes is in his contract deal, with getting a lengthy, long, probably very much larger than what he currently has deal for a long-term kind of deal to stay in Houston for quite a long time. You'd think.
Again, if Bill O'Brien, the GM, and can sign him, and Bill O'Brien, the coach, can
destroy him.
I think Houston needs to have. I think O'Brien, the coach, isn't that terrible. Again, he's won some division titles, but I think as the GM, it seems like he's bringing in people that are not quite as good as the people he is letting go. So I would worry maybe about, if I were Deshaun Watson, I would maybe worry about my long-term future at Houston, and I wouldn't. Again, I might not be as willing to sign a 10-year contract or something like that, like Mahomes did. But I'm also maybe not looking to get out the door like Dak Prescott is in Dallas. And I think Watson is much better quarterback than Prescott is. But I think there's a little bit of that situation, and I would say if I were Watson, do I think O'Brien has staying power, and do I trust what the long-term plan the Texans is? But other than that,
Bill O'Brien's GM isn't going to fire the coach, so
it's got to be the owner. So is McNair, is he still alive, the owner, or did he die or something? I can't remember exactly what their situation is.
I don't know,
but I think, though, again, he's a great guy to have. Again, unless you have Mahomes, Russell Wilson, maybe Lamar Jackson, if he proves that he can do it again, you got to feel really good as a Texans fan. And after that, I think.
Well, so I was just going to say that this is his 4th year of his rookie deal. He's set to make $4.4 million this year. They've already exercised his 5th year of his contract, which will be $17.5 million for next year. So this is a value season from Houston's perspective.
Even next year is a value season for a high quality
for what they're going to be paying him moving forward.
Yeah.
Or somebody else.
Yeah, and he has a 5-year deal because he was a first-round draft pick. Unlike Dak Prescott, who was a fourth-round pick, he only had the 4-year deal, so the 5th year was going to be more expensive because he had the franchise tag him, and that means you get, I think, is it the average of the top 5 players of the position. So I think Prescott gets like $30 million when he's franchised, whereas Watson only gets 17.5, even though he's clearly the better player than. And probably, but another thing that maybe Watson doesn't have this year that he had last year was DeAndre Hopkins, and
which would be a huge deal, not having one of the best wide receivers in the game, right?
Yeah, I think Kenny Stills and Will Fuller are both good. I think
Will Fuller,
the 5th, yes. Will Fuller's 1 through 4 were so famous we have to have the 5th, but. Yeah, I guess you worried at least he's going to have that number 1 threat. I think Fuller is very good, and I think Stills is good too. But and then I think the other guys they brought in are not quite as good as, I can't remember who else they brought in, but Cobb maybe and somebody else. But you don't have that security blanket. But and maybe the running backs, they have several of them that are all kind of pretty good but not great. So it still leaves a lot to Watson to run the show. But he's if he's healthy, he's one of the best. Backing them up, though, I think it's kind of an interesting situation with what they've got going on. We do have a sort of solid maybe backup at number 2 in AJ McCarron, former national champion from Alabama. He will be 29 in September, or 30. He'll be 30 in September. 5th-round draft pick in 2014 from Cincinnati. Played a few years there. He went to Oakland for a little while. Now he's at Houston. What do you think? What do you think of McCarron?
He seems like he should be a serviceable backup at least. He's 6th year in the league. Yeah, 4 years in Cincinnati, then signed a deal. A larger contract, 2-year, $10 million deal with Buffalo that ended up getting traded to Oakland.
Yes, that was right. Yeah.
The history of that, or how that whole deal played out, I think is somewhat interesting, at least anyway. So Buffalo signed him to this 2-year deal in March of 2018. Traded him in September to Oakland for 5th-round pick in the 2019 draft. Before that draft happened, Buffalo ended up trading that pick back to Oakland as part of another deal. And then Oakland then traded that pick to Dallas, who selected wide receiver Michael Jackson, who did not make it onto the roster in 2019. So that $10 million deal that they made with McCarron essentially turned into literally nothing within 1 year.
Wow, poor Buffalo. But Buffalo. Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, because he was probably hurt with. Was it with Tyrod Taylor and competing with him maybe or somebody? But interesting. Yeah, what I remember McCarron most for is his college career. Most famously, I think, in one of those BCS national championship games, it was when Brent Musburger ogled his girlfriend, Catherine Webb, who was a former Miss Alabama and an Auburn graduate, as he reported out. He goes, "Oh my, that's why you want to play quarterback at Alabama." That's what Brent Musburger was saying all the time.
Is that one of the creepier calls in NCAA college football?
Yeah, it's not like she was 15, But Brent Musburger is pushing 80 probably at this point. He is, of course, still the voice of the Oakland Raiders, so he was reunited briefly with AJ McCarron last year. I don't know if he met Catherine, his wife, but it pays to be even a backup quarterback can get the pretty girls And
Apparently.
so, but yeah, McCarron hasn't. Again, he was seen as a kind of system quarterback at Alabama. Alabama, until really Tua was seen as not really developing great quarterbacks under Nick Saban.
True.
But he's had only four career starts in his 6-year career. He's had 6 touchdowns, 3 picks, 86.2 quarterback rating. So not terrible when he's been in, but he's only played a few games. So 62.4% completion percentage, 1,153 yards. So he's had when he's gotten in, he hasn't embarrassed himself for sure. But again, also he was playing for the Bengals during most of that time, so it's hard to say what his true ability is. So he seems to be a decent backup, still fairly, I don't know, not old, but not inexperienced though either. So I think that's a decent backup to have.
He did make it into 2 games last season with Houston.
Oh yeah, did he 30 passes?
So he started one of the games and he was 21 of 37, 225 yards, and he had a rushing touchdown.
Okay.
So
Watson,
he's had some recent experience then too, so he's not coming out of nowhere anyway. And he's on a 1-year, $4 million deal right now.
And he's played in big games before at Alabama and things like that, so he's not like, he's used to the pressure and being in front of thousands of people, and it's not like he's an undrafted guy from, McNeese State or something. Sorry to pick on McNeese State. That was just the college that popped into my mind. Anyway,
but it seems like Houston has done, at least this season, has some like true value, at least anyway, from their how much they're committing in roster, at least, to the quarterbacks.
Yeah, they can pick. They got a lot of people. They've invested a lot in their line. They got Larry Tunsil, I think, from. They traded 2 first-round draft picks away for him for the left tackle position, so they don't have a lot of draft capital coming up in the next few years, which is possibly a big problem if you're going to sign Watson to a bunch of money. You need the draft picks to come in to get cheaper players, but.
So this is their year, though, to try to make a push, I think, to do something good.
Mm-hmm. And it's tough in the South because I think at least 3 of the teams think of themselves as playoff-worthy teams.
And they've been in and around the playoffs for quite a while, really. I mean, especially since Watson's been there. Yeah. They have, even before that, even with people like Brock Osweiler and other lesser-named quarterbacks, they've had a solid team this last 7 or 8 years. So now number 3 on the depth chart, it looks like it's Alex McGuff, but it's pronounced Alex Magoo. I read McGouf, former 7th-round pick out of Florida International, that football powerhouse. He was picked by Seattle in the 7th round, and then he was bounced around down to Jacksonville, and now it's Houston. Career practice squad player. Last name pronounced Magoo. I had a dog named Magoo, as you know. Good dog. So also Mr. Magoo, famous cartoon character. Is that how you spelled Magoo, though?
He was M-A. No, I spelled his name like M-A-G-O-O, like Mr. Magoo. My dad, when he was a kid, he also had a couple of dogs named Magoo. That was a popular family name.
Was it Magoo 3?
He was Magoo 3. Yeah.
The third, or Magoo 3.
Magoo 3. Well, yeah. Somebody called him Dr. Magoo rather than Mr. Magoo. But I have an interesting tidbit, Chiefs-related tidbit about Alex Magoo. His uncle is a former Chiefs player, former punter, Kelly Goodburn. Do you remember Kelly Goodburn, the Chiefs punter?
The name is familiar, but I don't.
He played for the Chiefs in the late 80s. I think he was, when Marty Schottenheimer first became the coach, he was the punter. Then he was replaced by Brian Barker. And then my favorite, Louis Aguiar, as the Chiefs punter. And then there have been some other ones before, Dustin Colquitt. But Louis Aguiar was my favorite. But Kelly Goodburn, also former Washington Redskin after playing for the Chiefs. He was
Washington former Redskin.
Former Washington Redskin.
Yeah.
He was a then current Redskin, but now it's a former Washington future football team
Yes.
That's hard to say. That's hard to really think about.
That's how it should be.
Yeah. But so he's got that NFL pedigree for sure.
For punting.
His uncle was a punter. But yeah, he's bounced around a lot, so he's definitely the third, or it's their fourth guy that they just got, which was
well, so McGough did make it onto the active roster for about 5 weeks last year.
Ooh, okay. So
and he's on a new first year of a 2-year deal that he's got right now.
Okay, and so he's probably the third over their new guy who's an undrafted free agent. Though, from what I had read, this guy Nick Tiano was thought maybe to be a mid-round talent by some of the scouting services. 6'4", mobile quarterback. So maybe he has some upside there. Also, maybe somewhat similar to Deshaun Watson's skill set, if he can make it. But he was a former Mississippi State player who transferred to UT Chattanooga. I don't know if he ran into Saints draft pick Tommy Stevens at any point during their time at Mississippi State, but he went to Chattanooga.
He was Dak Prescott's backup at Mississippi State.
Oh, maybe that's why he transferred.
But then he transferred home. He's actually from Chattanooga, apparently.
So the Moccasins.
Chattanooga.
The Moccasins, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he did sign a 3-year, $2.3 million contract. It's the first year of that.
Ooh, 3 years. Okay. So they must think of him as a developmental project then.
Seems that way.
McGough and Tiano.
But probably the practice squad.
Yeah.
Person, I would say.
Practice squad. And probably McGough as well, if they could put both of them on the practice squad or at least have them around. Again, I don't know what the practice squad rules are going to be this year, whether it's going to be similar.
Yeah.
Or whether they can have a kind of a taxi squad, kind of like Major League Baseball or something to have extra people active. But yeah, I think the Texans seem to be set at quarterback. I think their backup option is not terrible either, and they have some young guys that they're trying to develop. So this is one of those cases where I think GM O'Brien and Coach O'Brien are both in decent shape.
They should agree with each other and their choices.
Yes. One could fire the other. That would. You don't have that authority.
You're not my supervisor. I hope that gets said to himself, like in the mirror, repeatedly.
He develops some sort of schizophrenia of these two different personalities that he has to have. He probably has like Zoom, because he's talking to everybody on Zoom. He probably has like a background that he uses for GM and one for coach. Like it's a locker room.
So they know who he's talking to.
Office. And he wears like a clip-on tie or something for the GM, and then a whistle for the coach.
They could do it exclusively through what he drinks, though, too. Like
he drinks beer as a coach and wine as GM.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And whiskey, something like that.
That's exactly what it should do. Yeah.
He's got that shin thing going on, that weird, like somebody stuck him with a thumbtack right in there.
Yeah. I saw an interview with him on, I think it was on Highly Questionable, and they asked him how he shapes. What
did he say?
It was great. I know he gave like some kind of very carefully type answer, but it was funny.
Yeah. he hires a guy to do that. Okay, well, so what do we think? Do we think Watson makes this? Is he going to stay healthy this year?
But I mean, to me, when I look back at it, it looks like he had the more health issues early, and then he's been pretty healthy the last 2 seasons. So I think it seems like he's trending in the right direction.
Maybe running a little bit less, passing a little bit more.
Yeah, I think he makes almost all the starts, if not.
Not taking the hits. I think he's experiencing how to survive in the league, knowing when to hold him, knowing when to throw him. I tend to agree. Do you think he starts all 16?
I'll say he starts 15. McCarron gets 1.
I'll say Deshaun gets all 16.
Okay.
I like watching him play. I think I would be disappointed in some ways that he's not Mahomes if he were on my team, but I think again, that's not his fault. He's a very good. He's been a very good quarterback. Again, if the person should be the most disappointed, of course, it's a Chicago Bears fan whose team traded up 1 spot from 3 to 2 to get, was it 2 to 3 to 2 to get Trubisky? I think they traded up 1 spot. And then, of course, they also skipped out on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. It's definitely and the Sam Bowie pick with both Hakeem Olajuwon and Michael Jordan available. I guess they didn't. They did. They couldn't have drafted Hakeem, but still, yeah.
It's one of those.
The Darko Milicic.
Unfortunate, like kind of will always be looked back at as as that thing that happened, right? Remember when? Ugh.
Yeah. Whoa, those poor Mitchell Trubisky.
The Royals have done that a bunch of times too with their draft picks that I think we'll talk about in a future episode on the baseball side.
The Royals have done actually a better job drafting quarterbacks than the Chiefs have. They drafted, I think, was it the 79 amateur draft where they drafted both John Elway and Dan Marino in that draft. And they didn't, neither one of them signed, of course, but they drafted two Hall of Fame quarterbacks in one draft, whereas the Chiefs never drafted until perhaps Patrick Mahomes, because they didn't even draft Len Dawson. Len Dawson was a Pittsburgh Steelers cast off, and so.
And came to the Chiefs through the expansion too, right? They were still Houston, I think. Because there's in Chapels, there's a Houston Texans, then
or Dallas Texans.
Dallas Texans, pre-Chiefs, Len Dawson sweatshirt, I think, hanging in the restaurant.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how we got from Pittsburgh to the Texans. Then, of course, the Texans became the Chiefs in like '63 or something. But they didn't draft Len Dawson. Usually the Chiefs kind of in the '83 quarterback draft did something similar where you have John Elway and Jim Kelly and Dan Marino, and even kind of serviceable quarterbacks that are also there, like.
And who did we pick?
Todd Blackledge. Future broadcaster Todd Blackledge, former Penn State star. But Marino was available. I think Jim Kelly was too. But yeah, so not the best. But we can, again, for every bad pick, hopefully there's a good pick to pick to
somewhere in the franchise to make up for it, right? Yeah. So I guess to wrap up the Texans then, is the depth chart as we listed it then? Watson, Karen.
I think since they've had Magoo for a while, they probably try to keep him. Although Tiano, I think maybe a more upside, have a higher upside as a potential backup. But I think right now, since Magoo has been with the team, especially given the fact that there's not really an off season like normal, you want somebody who has that familiarity rather than just in case something happens. So I think Tiano is the practice squad project.
Yeah,
Magoo practice squad also.
I agree. So should we move on to the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, moving on. Just like with the NFC South, the AFC South finished from west to east, first, second, third, and fourth this year. And so to have that prediction going west to east in the order 1, 2, 3, 4, that's you have a 1 in 24 chance of that happening for both the NFC South and AFC South to finish first place west, second place second west, third place third farthest west, fourth place fourth farthest west. Both of those to finish that way, almost a 1 in 500 chance, 1 in 496.
And they did it.
Chance.
That's what happened. Yeah.
It's a miracle. We want to experience that again. So, mark down where you were when you learned that fact.
Well, I think we already picked the NFC West to finish differently than it did last.
We did. I think the AFC West. I mean the NFC South. Finished, but I think the AFC South has a very good chance of actually finishing the same way.
Yeah, fairly likely actually.
I think any of those top 3 teams, though, however, could possibly win the division. I think Jacksonville's clearly number 4 and going to play for 4th place. Even though technically they're probably not trying to tank, but really. But the AFC South, I think, has a interesting. But I think of the quarterback situations, the clearest one is going to be Houston. The Titans and the Colts have kind of interesting, I think, situations. Partly because the Titans have invested all of their money in Ryan Tannehill, the number 1 quarterback, 31 years old, former first-round pick from Miami in 2012. Finally, it seems like living up to his hype as the pre-Johnny Manziel starter for Texas A&M. He signed a big deal in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
4 years for, was 118?
Mm-hmm. 91 million guaranteed, too, which is a large percentage guaranteed.
Yeah, they're tying up a lot of money in
Yeah.
Tannehill, basically on the basis of a good half season and then a good playoff run. That led, of course, to the AFC Championship game last year, where they were eventually knocked out by the Chiefs. But
it was last season was his career best in completion percentage, yards per attempt, interceptions. Only threw 6 interceptions during last season, and it had his highest QBR for
117.5 rating. Led the league, I think, or if he was eligible. He didn't play enough. Maybe play enough games, but yeah, injury plagued the previous years. He didn't actually do that terribly as a starter in Miami. So maybe Miami is just a bad situation for a lot of players. He's a big guy, mobile. So do you think the Titans did not choose to keep what's his name? He went to Las Vegas, Marcus Mariota. He did not choose to keep Marcus Mariota around. They decided to put all their eggs in the Tannehill basket. And really, they didn't really, as we'll talk about, they didn't really invest in a backup quarterback for him either. There's no solid backup behind Tannehill. He runs the ball quite a bit, not as much as maybe he used to, but he's mobile, big guy. I don't think he has the greatest arm, but he did fantastic in that limited run. How comfortable are you having Tannehill repeat? You think he's going to repeat his performance, or was he a flash in the pan?
I assume, at least anyway, they must have been happy with his performance as they let Mariota go and then signed Tannehill to a longer term deal. So it seems to be what their strategy is moving forward is Tannehill for a few years. The next 2 picks on the list were very late round draft picks, and are probably not expected to be the quarterback of the future. So, they may be a candidate for bringing in another experienced quarterback that we've kind of been talking about as we move through here.
But they've invested a lot of money in Tannehill.
More than Houston spent on their entire quarterback, on all 4 of their quarterbacks, by another $6 million, I guess, too, on top of it.
Yeah.
Tannehill's due $22.5 million this year.
And then they also gave a lot of money to Derrick Henry after his great performance, tying up a lot of money in a running back. Again, running back also seems like the least good position to invest a ton of money in, although Derrick Henry rather led the league in rushing. He single-handedly kind of transformed the Titans in those playoff games. He just ran through the Patriots and the Ravens. So they're really trying to, Mike Vrabel as the coach, they're really trying to recapture what they did the previous year. And maybe they think, well, we did it once. We only had a little bit of time. We can, get even better next year. And,
or at least be the same.
Yeah.
Which should be encouraging to them as a franchise also.
Yeah.
Appearances.
Yeah. I don't think that's a bad plan, but I'm not sure if it's a plan that it is definitely going to work. I guess no plans for sure, but I don't know if I would say Tannehill is not going to be as good as he was in that last half of the season on average.
Would be pretty difficult, right?
That would be difficult. He was comeback player of the year. He also maybe should have been something that could have gotten an MVP vote here or there because of the way he turned the Titans around. I think also, Derrick Henry was fantastic. I don't think Henry will quite be what he was, but maybe he will.
Well, that's where the team's going to rely really heavily on Derrick Henry. If he does not perform like he did last year, or if he ends up taking an injury at some point, it's going to be a very different team than what Tennessee's performance was last season, and probably Tannehill's performance was last season.
I think Tannehill was aided very much by having Derrick Henry, this huge beast of a runner, threat to go for 200 yards plus every game, basically, if you felt like it. And it's, I'm if I were a Tennessee fan, I would be optimistic, but I would not necessarily rule out a third place finish in the division this year either, because Houston, I think, still has a better quarterback, and I think they have a more proven track record than Tennessee. And I think Indianapolis will kind of be more prepared this year than they were last year because they lost Andrew Luck so quickly. And so suddenly when he retired just right before the season started. So
last year.
Yeah, last year. But also I think the Tennessee, if Tannehill goes down, then that's a big issue, and maybe there should be some sort of backup brought in, unless you're comfortable with Logan Woodside as your backup quarterback. Andrew, are you?
I think Cole McDonald is actually the next highest paid player.
Okay, let's talk about Cole McDonald then.
Sure.
Drafted this year, right, out of Hawaii.
Correct.
7th round pick.
Yep.
What else do we know about Cole McDonald?
Apparently in the combine, he had the fastest 40 and the highest vertical of all quarterbacks.
Oh, really? Yeah. Athletic guy. 6'4", 220, good size. I looked up his last year at University of Hawaii last year, 76.3% completion percentage, over 4,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, 14 picks. Also a very good 2018. Again, this seems like a guy, again, my second least favorite player in the NFL right now, maybe after Taysom Hill, maybe even ahead of Taysom Hill, is Jordan Love, the guy that they picked, the Packers picked out of Utah State. Why pick that guy in the first round when this guy with these stats and that arm and that athleticism is available in the 7th round? Why trade up to get this guy in the first round when it seems like he's going to be available later? And I don't know if that's less or more frustrating to me than the Taysom Hill situation, the Jordan Love situation, which I brought up, I think, a couple of times already in our power hours. But Donald seems like an upside player. So maybe again they can say this guy could come in and step. He could be, like Gardner Minshew, late round pick, be able to figure things out. Again, I think Minshew was a little bit more on the less athletic, brainy side of things. I don't know if McDonald's a doofus or not, but we'll talk about Minshew. Was a pretty bright guy. He had a 42 on the Wonderlic. So I don't know what McDonald had.
I hope we find out about their doofus skills as we move on through these two. Is it a technical evaluation in the combine now, or is that
doofus? That possibility of doofusity. Yeah.
Is that his first 4-year deal that he has in as a rookie deal from the signing?
Usually, if you draft a guy, you're not going to get rid of him after the first year.
Yeah. Even if you pick him in the 7th round. Yeah.
Yeah. And with their third quarterback, or maybe in terms of experience, their second most experienced quarterback now on the roster is Logan Woodside. Where Cole McDonald, like you said, it was the fastest and the best jumping of the quarterbacks in the combine. Logan Woodside appears to be fairly immobile as a quarterback. He's only 6'1". He played at Toledo, and he's spent 2 years on the practice squad. He was drafted by Cincinnati. He also played in the Alliance of American Football with the San Antonio Commanders, which I guess he had a good season for. So he's bounced around. He's sort of a journeyman already. He's 25 years old, 3 years older than McDonald. But he has a little bit more experience with the offense than McDonald is. If maybe I would say probably less upside than McDonald. What McDonald seems like. I didn't know anything. Again, once you read me those stats of his, he's fast and he can jump high.
Yeah. Maybe he's a Taysom Hill type, and maybe they try to get him into. Maybe he's actually the 3rd quarterback on the list, and then
that could be.
But they also use him in gadget play situations.
But I think he also probably had an offensive career that was just as good or better than whatever Taysom Hill had. Maybe I don't know. I didn't remember what Taysom Hill did at BYU, but
yeah. But Cole McDonald is much younger though too. So
and also those BYU quarterbacks oftentimes when they do really well, they're like 23, 24 playing against 18-year-old kids because they've already, gone on their missions, and a lot of them are married and have children and stuff. So it's like, it is kind of literally men against boys a lot of times. So it's hard to really compare some of those stats when it's, it's a little bit like Kramer in the Karate Class. Do you remember that episode?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
We're all at the same skill level, Jared.
It is true.
Yeah.
They were the same skill level.
Karate.
It's great.
So, Logan Woodside.
The one stat I had on Woodside was he was the AAF Player of the Week in Week 5.
Well, I think I saw that too. He had a perfect quarterback rating that year. That game.
That one game, yeah.
He did excellently that one game. That got him a tryout for the Tennessee Titans, and perhaps the inside track to the second quarterback position. I don't know. This is a place where you think possibly, even if you like McDonald, without an off season to help you get acclimated, do you think there's room for a experienced backup behind Tannehill?
It does look like there is. I mean, they're not committing a lot of money to either of these other, McDonald or Woodside. Woodside's only on he's in the first year of a 2-year, $1.4 million deal. So only a little over $500,000 really that he's due this season. So, financially they should have room to bring someone else in, I think, if they wanted to, at least on how much they're committing to quarterbacks anyway.
Yeah.
So, it might be an opportunity for them to look for available quarterbacks after maybe this culling that happens anyway. Before.
Yeah, maybe that, or it's like Kaepernick's not the most Nashville friendly of personalities, but he would be also a good fit, because I think he does some of the same things that Tannehill does. But
Woodside's was on the practice squad for 2 different seasons with Tennessee. He's got a developmental deal, so but probably, since he's already been on the team, probably has the inside track on the number 2 spot.
But I think they probably like McDonald's future potential. Tannehill's already 31. He has 4 more years on his deal, but you think maybe you could develop McDonald into somebody, or maybe 3 years. You get lots of times the 4th years. It's the first 2 or 3 years that are guaranteed, really, and then the 4th year you can jettison somebody if he's not around. But they've invested a lot of money in Tannehill, a lot of money in Henry. They're really in win now mode. So you would think maybe that would also say, well, we need a backup quarterback that's somewhat proven, because if Tannehill goes down, we don't want to just scrap this entire season.
Well, it could be interesting though with who they have. It's just there's not a lot of
Woodside or
McDonald to go on as to what they're going to bring to the table.
Yeah, that's true.
So do you have a stab at the hierarchy then, the depth chart? I mean, obviously Tannehill's 1. Right?
Tannehill number 1. I think Woodside probably number 2, simply because of his experience. If this were a regular offseason, maybe McDonald could wow his way into the backup role. But there's not going to be a preseason to play. So I'd say Woodside, then McDonald. Tannehill, and he's had some injury issues. He missed a whole season due to injury. And I think, though, again, I think he's not going to be standing back in the pocket a lot, throwing a ton, because he's got a running back that can do it. But if they get behind, they're going to have to throw. And that's so I don't, but I guess I would hope that he makes it through the whole season, but I don't necessarily think he will. It's tough to make it unscathed. So I'm going to say he does most of the time. I'll say he gets 14 starts. And then I guess, we have 2 left. I really don't know if Woodside or McDonald are going to start a football game, though. I would say they're going to bring somebody in.
You think two to another, to be determined?
2 to a TBD. Yeah, that's my guess. Because how about you?
I'm torn between the 2 different arguments that I've made in the past, anyway. For the unprepared seems to lead to problems. And
like the Jared Goff situation, you think it's
unprepared.
Yeah.
Like who was it? The Rams.
The Rams and Goff, yeah.
Right. And
although it seems like maybe they're more prepared than what we had given them credit for if they actually like their backup in Wolford. They see this as kind of Kurt Warner Jr. type.
And this may be the similar situation there where they have their starting quarterback and then an AAF guy in the 2 spot, right? So this isn't terribly different than that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I could probably hedge that bet saying that Tannehill will play more games.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think maybe I'll say he'll play. Let's see. I can't make it an even number so that there's a half a game difference between us anyway. So I'll say he plays 11 games.
Okay.
So still less than a full season anyway. And then I'll say Woodside gets 4 starts, and McDonald gets the 5th.
Ooh, very. You're really out on a limb there. Okay.
Let's just go. Well, I'll go with
Logan
that.
Woodside. Yeah. He sounds like either Logan Woodside. It sounds like a Subway stop, maybe, or maybe a barbecue restaurant.
Maybe a model of a station wagon or
the Logan Woodside. The old wood panel. The David Seville mobile, like in
Oldsmobile Logan Woodside.
Logan Woodside.
Maybe the most expensive quarterback set in the Indianapolis Colts.
Yes. So we have, they brought in, they had the rather sudden, at least probably from the Colts' perspective, retirement of Andrew Luck, who I guess still technically, if he decided he wanted to come back and play, would be an Indianapolis Colt. His rights would be owned by the Colts. So I wouldn't, again,
still under team control.
Is maybe slim to none, but that would be interesting if he decided he wanted to come back. But the number 1 quarterback right now is the guy they just brought in from San Diego, Philip Rivers, 38 years old. Started the last 16 years with San Diego.
Los Angeles.
Oh, Los Angeles. 15 years with San Diego, 1 year with, or 14 years with San Diego, 2 years with Los Angeles.
All of those years with the Chargers, though.
The Chargers, yes. Whatever, those Los Angeles Chargers. That was a dumb move. Maybe it'll turn out to be okay, but like they're the second fiddle in Los Angeles by long ways in a city that doesn't really care about football, and not that San Diego really cares either. But at least they were the only team, and they had a following. But Philip Rivers, class, solid starting quarterback, maybe borderline Hall of Fame level quarterback. Hasn't had the playoff success. He's a better quarterback in terms of stats and career things than somebody like Eli Manning. But Eli Manning, kind of ironically, it was Eli Manning who was drafted by the Chargers in that 2004 draft. He says he was never going to play for the Chargers, forces a trade to New York. And so the Chargers end up taking Philip Rivers instead.
Which I thought set up this really interesting scenario for possibly for this season where Eli Manning was maybe looking for a different position and they end up like getting back to where they should have been from the beginning.
The Giants. Yeah, I think the Giants are still thinking of Daniel Jones as being a possibility, but I don't know if that's wise or not. I think he was a Trubisky. I think he's Trubisky. I think he was a dumb.
Probably.
I don't know. I think he came from Duke rather than North Carolina, but wasn't like a light him up starter. He didn't play that much. And then suddenly he's this highly drafted guy for no reason. I don't know. But maybe Daniel
Jones. They're either geniuses or morons, right?
Yeah. I guess you could say that somebody like Mahomes. He was from where did he come from? But
well, to the rest of the world, the Duke North Carolina thing is they're the same place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're very different if you're from there, but
they might get murdered.
And I guess Philip Rivers is North Carolina State. NC State quarterbacks have turned out actually much better than UNC or Duke quarterbacks.
Well, there are 2 NC State quarterbacks on this team.
That's true. We have
that, but we're not done talking about Rivers yet, though.
We're not done talking about Rivers. Oh, yeah. Rivers. He threw 20 interceptions last year, so I think the Chargers weren't unhappy to see him go. Really, they kind of thought he did a great job for them, but he was maybe a little bit too turnover prone for the Chargers type of offense. But in Indianapolis, he's going to the Dome.
Well, he was 123 and 101 as his career record as a quarterback, but he did have three of his last 5 seasons with the Chargers were losing seasons, which is probably why they were okay with having him.
Yeah,
belong.
I don't think it was exactly his fault that they were losing seasons. I think I don't think Anthony Lynn is the right answer as a coach in LA, but
may have been seen as a little careless with the ball in the last.
Yeah, he was. I think he
at least anyway.
He didn't quite. I think he was seen as he was a little bit too as a careless cavalier with his throws.
Salons.
Yeah, but he still threw more touchdowns than picks.
Mm-hmm.
But he did throw them in big games and big times against the Chiefs. He threw, he often bunched them together too, which I think is what frustrated, because he threw, I think, 4 in the Mexico City game against the Chiefs, and I think he threw a couple big ones in the Arrowhead Cold game that we actually that we saw, right? And he threw a couple picks, at least one.
I think so.
Maybe 2.
Well, yeah, and in Indy they committed a lot of money to him this year, but not a long-term deal, at least anyway. It's only
he's 38 years old, so he's on his, again, unless he's going to last like Breeze or Brady, which maybe he will. He's got all those kids. He's got all those mouths to feed at home.
True.
But he's made a comfortable living.
I actually have that. It's $243 million, including this.
So not as much as Matt Ryan or
$125 million deal.
Much as
right. So he'd be 4th on these the longevity dollars. These quarterbacks that have been around for a long time.
I think I could handle $243 million. I think.
With Breeze at $294, Matt Ryan at $319, and Tom Brady at $285. Mm-hmm. So Rivers is a distant 4th on that list at only $243 million.
Yeah,
but
it's
only a 17th year.
Stafford will probably pass them, and soon even. Stafford's almost the same as. We can look that up when we do the NFC.
Yeah,
but he's a year younger than. I think he's a year behind Ryan, and also 1st-round pick like Ryan, and somebody who has played pretty well. But yeah, Rivers, I think. So Rivers is coming in, but they're keeping this quarterback who they had start last year, who's also making a pretty hefty salary. So Rivers is he making $25 million this year?
Mm-hmm.
And Jacoby Brissett's making 21. Is that?
Yeah, he's in the 2nd year of a 2-year, $30 million deal.
Okay.
I think he's getting paid a lot more in this season than he did in the previous.
More this season than the last season. That kind of happens. And so Brissett is 27, much younger. Of course, Brissett was drafted in the 3rd round by the Patriots in 2016. He played a little bit for New England when I think Garoppolo got hurt after Brady was out for a few games. But he's been with the Colts for the last 3 years, 2 as a starter, because 2017, I think he was a starter when Luck was injured. Then Luck came back in 2018. Luck retires before 2019, and Brissett is the starter. It seems like the Colts, though, were not comfortable having him as the starter for whatever reason. They thought Rivers would be an upgrade. And
he basically had 2 full seasons of quarterbacking the team, though. It was all 16 games in 2017 and 15 games of 2019 that he played.
Yeah, and do you have his stats?
His 2019 stats, he had 61% completion percentage, just shy of 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, 6 picks.
Okay.
So 88 QBR.
That's not bad, but then it's not a lot. In today's NFL, it's not a lot of passing yards. No. So less than 200 passing yards a game.
They have historically been a running team with a good quarterback, though. Like, they've always had some strong running back to rely on.
But I think but they didn't really have that last year either. The running team was a little bit iffy.
But in the years prior to that, they've always had somebody, and they didn't really have that last year.
With Frank Reich coaching staff, like when the Colts 2 years ago, the Colts with Luck were thought to be a team that could challenge the Chiefs long term, because Luck was fairly young and the Colts were kind of on their upswing. But then they had a lot of good draft picks, and their offensive line is very talented. They have a lot of good defensive players too. But losing Luck really changed their luck. And I think.
Yeah, so Brissett's season this year, he is getting paid $21.4 million committed to that. So the
that's a lot of money. That's somebody
20% of their cap is spent on quarterbacks.
Yeah, you might even think, well, if Rivers is going to be the quarterback, do we want to pay the backup that much? Do I try to get rid of him somehow? But it also seems like maybe Brissett is also the sort of quarterback of the future, maybe, or a possibility. If Rivers doesn't last, you want to keep him around. But if I were Brissett, I would not be very happy, probably, other than I'd be sitting on a large pile of money. I'd be happy about that, but I wouldn't be happy about the way the team kind of treated him, coming in and stepping in really with no notice as the starter twice and doing fairly well both times. The team wasn't so great.
Well, and then re-signing him after the first one to a shorter-term deal, but after the first time he filled in for an entire season.
Yeah. So, but it seems like since the Colts have 4 quarterbacks on their roster, maybe they're willing to jettison Brissett. Even I'm not sure.
They're both he and Rivers are in their final year of their current deals too, so they could be both gone after this season.
Both be gone
by contract analysis, anyway, right?
So if they lost both of them, who do you have as the third quarterback for the Colts?
Well, Jacob Eason is the next on the list by salary.
Okay, and he was drafted this year out of Washington, 4th round pick. He was formerly at the University of Georgia, but transferred, I guess, because he was behind some Justin Fields and some other players.
Fromm, right? There? Yeah. I think that's why he went to
Fromm was there. Justin Fields was also there. He transferred to Ohio State, and so I think probably they had a logjam at Georgia. So Eason went to University of Washington, had a solid season there. Washington was a pretty good team last year. 23 touchdowns, 8 picks, 3,000 yards, 64% completion. He's a big guy, 6'6", 230 pounds. So he's got the size that you want in a quarterback, at least the prototypical. It doesn't seem like any of those big guys are as good as some of the shorter guys. Has there been a great, tall, big quarterback that's been? I guess Brady's fairly tall, 6'4", but it seems like
Roethlisberger. I guess he's 6'5", I think. Right?
Okay, yeah. It seems like those bigger guys, though, often don't pan out. The size doesn't seem to
Osweiler. He's a Hall of Famer, right?
Ryan Leaf. Yeah.
Ryan Leaf.
Mark McGuire's brother, Dan McGuire, was drafted by the Seahawks. Did you remember him? He was
no, I didn't remember that.
In the early 90s. Yeah. But yeah, so Eason, it seems like he will be. If you're going to draft a quarterback, even in the top 4, in the round 4, you still want to see if that guy could be a starter. So you'd think that you want to give him a shot if he looks good. But where's he going to get the chance to look good not in the preseason? He's 3rd on the depth chart at best. So
maybe fighting for a position, at least in practice anyway, with Chad Kelly. I know you're excited to talk about at least a little bit.
I love Chad Kelly. Actually, he was a former Denver draft pick. He was Mr. Irrelevant in the 2017 draft. Drafted 7th round, last pick of everybody.
So is he still irrelevant if he's on a roster though, or is it?
They call it Mr. Irrelevant. They just call it Mr. Irrelevant if you're the last draft pick. I don't know.
Well, I know, but I mean that's because historically they've never amounted to anything, right? So
I guess not. Ryan Suckup has probably been one of the most successful ones.
The Chiefs broke that mold though because they ended up drafting Suckup, and then he made the team and performed admirably for.
He's been a good kicker. He's still in the league, I believe. So, but yeah, Chad Kelly. He was picked by Denver and then gotten rid of, again, one of the many quarterback draft picks that Denver has had in the past decade that have not turned out so hot for John Elway as GM. But he wouldn't actually last one full season on Denver's roster because he was kicked off the team after an incident that came after Von Miller's Halloween party, I guess in 2017. Must have been a great party. All the Broncos were there, I'm sure, dressed as themselves in costume. But yeah, he got drunk at the party, and he ended up wandering into somebody else's apartment and was arrested for trespassing and things like that. But I think he was just kind of mumbling incoherently and wouldn't get off the couch, if I remember my things correctly. But but that was seen as conduct detrimental and embarrassing to the team. So, but he has got another chance with the Colts, it seems, as a possible number 3 or 4 quarterback there. But I think what do you think went on at Von Miller's Halloween party? He's one of the. I like Von Miller. I like even though he plays for the Broncos. I like he seems intelligent. He seems thoughtful. I like his kind of fake glasses that he wears. Maybe they're real glasses. But what do you think
of the Broncos? He seems to be one of the most likable Broncos that I've known.
Yeah, I want to kind of think.
They're already like almost every Bronco. I mean, well, I'm not saying almost. All Bronco players start at a lower rung of like being possibly likable in a Chiefs fan perspective, right? So
yeah.
I remember that at one time there was John Elway's furniture store. I think tried to looked at possibly opening a branch in the
car dealerships. I know too.
Kansas City area though, and it did not go over well. Like that's still bitter. I think no one wants to hear John Elway's name here ever. It hurts a little just to even say the name, even now. Bronco.
I kind of liked him as a player, even though he didn't like him playing against the Chiefs. But
so that's saying a tremendous amount for Von Miller that he can overcome some of this extreme dislike of the Broncos from a Kansas City.
Yeah. He's said some nice things about the Chiefs and also about Patrick Mahomes in the media. So I think that's also part of what happens. But also I think he does seem like a thoughtful guy. And I was thinking what his party would look like. I'm imagining it as being a party like did you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine? That Captain Holt throws at his apartment. Something like that is what a soiree like that. I think of it as being a very, very classy affair that Chad Kelly ruined by his drunken, boorish behavior, and then he ends up going into some other apartment and getting arrested because of that. And it's
causing great shame,
a scandal and a disgrace to the tuxedo-wearing Denver Broncos.
I hope that's what it is.
I hope so too. That would be very classy if they had that. Party like that, but so let's check it. So what do you think the order of the depth chart?
So Kelly's he's in the second year of a $1.2 million contract, which has to be close to the minimum. And Eason is on a 4-year, $4 million rookie contract, but it'll scale, I think, with the rookie, as all rookie contracts do. So, I think Rivers is the starter, even though it probably should be Brissett's team at this point. But this isn't our choice. This is what we think they're going to do. Right?
So I guess Rivers is learning a new system, and how well can he learn it, not being able to be on the field, especially since he's so entrenched. Again, he's I'm sure he's been such an experienced player, knows how to quarterback a team. But some of there will be some growing pains probably. This is the same thing with Brady. In Tampa, somebody who's been in one place for such a long time goes to a different place that does things a little bit differently, for better or for worse. It's there hasn't been that time to acclimate, and maybe even in that case, being a younger player, you could acclimate more quickly than if you're an older player who's kind of more stuck in their ways. And but I don't see Rivers falling out of that top spot, at least not unless he plays poorly.
Mm-hmm. Which is a possibility.
Gets hurt, which is also a possibility.
Yeah. What do you think about Eason and Kelly then as the 3-4?
I think since they drafted Eason as a 4th-round pick, they're going to put Eason up there. And I think Kelly is kind of the odd man out. Maybe he's still eligible to be on the practice squad. I'm sure they'll figure out how to keep him around since they've already had him on the roster for a year, so they'll keep him around, I'm sure. So how many games from Rivers do you think to start the season? Okay, well, it seems like Brissett either plays in all the games or none of the games. And
it was 16-4-15 in his last 3 seasons.
Okay, but he didn't start out any of those 4 games in the other one. I think he just
Played in anyway. Yeah.
I think he just got in a couple of garbage time minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say so he either starts or he barely plays at all. Starts, barely plays at all.
Sure.
So I'm going to say Rivers starts all 16 games, and Brissett just kind of stews on the bench and
angrily on television with a clipboard,
and is hoping that somebody else picks him up the year after, or Rivers retires and maybe he can be the new starter. But I think he also sees Eason as the guy coming for his backup job too. So if I were Brissett, I would not be very happy with my position on the Colts. And maybe to his credit, I haven't heard any rumblings about that. So maybe he's just biding his time. But he seemed like he was at least a solid backup. He's a solid backup at the least. And I don't know how long he wants to be a backup and not be a starter, though. So, yeah, I'm going to say Rivers starts all the games.
You would think with Brissett's history then of filling in quite well for entire seasons, not just like a few games here or there, that they would either bring in a backup for him or go ahead and trade him to somewhere else where he can start if they don't want him to be the starter. I'm not quite sure why they did this.
He's still on the roster.
Bringing Philip Rivers in.
Yeah, it seems a little odd to me too because they're bringing in Eason as the quarterback of the future, but they already have Brissett, who's at least a caretaker. But it seems like maybe they think, we can maybe with Rivers he provides a little bit more upside, and this next year we can challenge for division titles, possibly Super Bowl, which maybe seems far fetched. But they were. You won a playoff game 2 years ago. They did block a punt against the Chiefs and scored a touchdown that way.
But if they didn't bring Rivers, I would say this probably would have been the spot to bring somebody like Kaepernick in as a backup because Brissett can be okay.
Yeah,
starter, and then but they brought in Rivers, so that's not a possibility now. I don't think, but
I don't
until that move happened. That should have been probably what would have been made the most sense, at least as a landing spot for somebody like a solid backup.
The Indianapolis situation is a little bit odd to me too. I think also this is a case where if you're making it clear that you don't want Brissett as your starter, why are you keeping him? Because you're paying him a starting.
That's why I thought he would have been. They would have just gone ahead and traded him if they brought in.
Too much. But maybe his trade value is too. Nobody thinks he's a super quality starter. So
for that dollar amount anyway.
A dollar amount. So maybe this is the year where you just kind of have to cut him, not re-sign him after this year, and he'll go on the free agent market and maybe try to do a Jameis Winston or a Cam Newton kind of short. Again, not to compare him as a player with the success that or Andy Dalton type. Like that kind of short contract, maybe prove it. If he gets lucky, he'll get in some games and be able to.
That'd be great. That sounds really likely that he would go in and be the number 2 at New Orleans next season, and then get a big deal the year after that. With Taysom Hill as his third string then too, right?
Yeah, I think Brissett is a Bridgewater level quarterback. I think Winston is a couple steps above Bridgewater. Even though he's only playing for $1 million, and Newton if he's healthy, because again Winston,
I think it was right.
$2 million was
it 3? I think it was 3.
I think Andy Dalton is also a better quarterback than Bridgewater, at least from what I've seen. But
yeah, 1 year, $3 million was with incentives and bonus was 3. Yeah.
Okay. So, but I think Brissett, somebody that wants to take a flyer on him as a backup and maybe revive his career as a possible starter, but he's still pretty young. He's only 27, so he's actually he shares my birthday. He's born December 11th. So
wow.
I looked it up. Philip Rivers is born December 8th, so also December.
Just missed.
Just missed.
So I think because of Rivers, in a new system, and 17th season in the league, I'm going to say he only gets 10. He only finishes 10 starts this year, and Brissett gets the other 6.
Okay, and I think who do you think has more success as the starter though?
Brissett.
You think Brissett's better? So would you say if Rivers gets hurt and Brissett fills in well, does Brissett keep the job if Rivers recovers?
I think he would be offered, but I think he should choose to go elsewhere because of how they've treated him with the contract and bringing in Rivers to begin with. Is my, non-informed opinion.
Okay. I was thinking of during the season, like let's say Rivers plays the first 8 games, not so great, he gets hurt. Brissett plays 6 really good games. Then Rivers is eligible to come back. Do you think they would finish?
Oh, well, they both be in the final year of their deal, so it'd be whoever they think they want to keep for the next year, they'd get the last start to.
Or do they ride the hot hand and then just kind of get rid of them?
If they're in playoff contention, then they stick with whoever got them there, I think, yeah. But
I don't know if this is another Tannehill, Mariota type of situation with.
How many times does Brissett have to be Tannehill before the Colts just give him the job?
That's true.
Apparently, it's more than twice. Right.
Or Jacoby.
So let's wrap up the AFC South with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mm-hmm. And because we said we were going to list these quarterbacks in order of their cap hits for this season, we're not starting with last year's starter, but with Mike Glennon.
Another NC State quarterback like Phillip Rivers. Also, I guess Russell Wilson was at NC State for a while before he transferred to Wisconsin.
And Brissett. Don't forget Brissett.
Brissett was also NC State. All these NC State guys battling it out. NC State seems to be the class. Isn't it so weird that they're they have so many NFL they're not that good a team ever, really. They're always kind of maybe 7-5 or so, 6-6.
Yeah.
But they've got a lot. They usually have a good quarterback, or at least one that becomes fairly serviceable in the NFL. Especially Glennon. So he's there. He was the 3rd round pick for Tampa Bay back in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
He bounced around a lot. Tampa Bay, Chicago, Arizona, Oakland, now Jacksonville. He's 30 years old now. He's started 22 games in his career, played in 29. 36 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, 84.3 quarterback rating, which is higher than I had thought thinking of Mike Glennon. I think of him again as the kind of consummate journeyman backup, but he's actually had a decent career.
Now, those numbers are usually in short bursts, though, too.
Short bursts, yeah, game or two here or there at the most, probably.
Right.
And we started for Chicago a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But
19 of his 29 starts were in his first 2 seasons in the league. He's in his 8th season now.
Yeah. So what's his salary? What is he making this year?
He signed a 1-year, $1.2 million deal.
So he is the most highly paid of the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterbacks, which I think tells you what the Jacksonville Jaguars are trying to do this year. Maybe not, because they might say, well, our number 2 quarterback in terms of salary is also our number 1 quarterback in starting. He's not even.
No. Number 2 on the list.
Oh, that's Joshua Dobbs, isn't it?
It's Joshua Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
Former Tennessee quarterback. 4th round pick for Pittsburgh in 2017. Kind of a dual threat quarterback, different from Glennon. Glennon, I think, is more of a drop back guy. He was traded to the Jaguars last year when Mason Rudolph won the backup job. And, of course, Mason Rudolph ends up starting a lot of the games for Ben Roethlisberger last year.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh had a horrible situation with the quarterback last year with Roethlisberger going on. Rudolph got hurt. And a guy named, Duck Dodges or something started.
Right. Duck something, right? Yeah.
Duck Hodges.
Hodges.
Duck Hodges, not Duck Dodge.
Just Hodge.
Duck Hodge?
Maybe.
It was Hodges. It wasn't Duck Dodgers of the 24th
century. Whatever and a half century.
24th, I think, and a half century. But yeah, Duck. But so Joshua Dobbs, I guess, probably wanted a trade, and maybe they. So he was traded.
It is Hodges with an S.
Yeah, Hodges. Yeah. So again, he's probably likely not going to be the starter as well. But interesting possibilities. There's a lot of interesting guys on Jacksonville, but it seems like the likely starter is the guy who ended up starting most of the games last year. Was not brought in to be the starter last year. It was a 6th round draft pick. 2019. That's Gardner Minshew. Minshew Mania was alive and well in Jacksonville last year. and London, I suppose. Where they again they aren't going to be able to have any games in London. What are the Jaguars going to do with 8 home games in that stadium?
No fans.
He had a good season kind of last year. He was
yeah, 14 games he played.
Mm-hmm. More than 3,000 yards,
yeah.
21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 91 quarterback rating.
Mm-hmm.
He played actually very well when he had to come in kind of an emergency. When in the first game against the Chiefs, when Foles got hurt, Nick Foles, who was traded by the Jaguars this offseason to the Bears, kind of hilariously, I think, the Bears are going to pay that much money for Foles as, again, possible backup, possible starter, when there were so many other players like, Andy Dalton, Cam Newton, Jameis Winston as possible candidates to be backup/starters. But Minshew, with the mustache and he was a smart guy. Got 42 on his Wonderlic out of 50. Anything above a 40 is considered to be a really excellent score.
The average. You would guess that with the Fu Manchu mustache, but
I could do that with my mustache.
Yeah. But you don't wear it as a Fu Manchu.
No, I don't. But I'm not Gardner Minshew either. I'm not a.
That's the difference.
I'm not an East Carolina to Washington State transfer quarterback. He was really kind of thinking. I think he was thinking of really getting into coaching. That's one reason why he went to Washington State, because Mike Leach is up there, and he actually. This has happened a couple of times where Mike Leach grad transfers have turned into pretty good, at least serviceable backup type quarterbacks. Minshew, 24 years old, still got. Again, he was a starter last year. Even if he does very well, though, who knows if he's going to be the starter next year, because the Jaguars are going to be terrible, probably. They seem like they're not sad about that either. I think they're playing for draft position.
Does seem that way. And they're only committing 1.5% of their salary to the quarterback position, which is.
And they have 4 guys right now.
Very different than every other team, essentially. Right.
Yeah, and they also drafted another guy this year, 6th-round draft pick in was it Jake Luton?
Mm-hmm.
You know anything about Jake Luton?
He is out of Oregon State. He did have a very good touchdown to interception ratio of 28-3.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
For his his last season in Oregon State, I don't know if it's senior. So he's in the first year of a 4-year, $3.5 million rookie deal that he's got.
Okay. So again, this is interesting because
it's a higher contract than what Minshew got in the 1 year later.
Yeah, because I guess the inflation.
For the total dollar amount, though. But yeah, in this season.
Minshew's the second year.
Minshew's making about $65,000 more than for Luton.
$65,000 more this year.
Yeah, and so Dobbs is making $825,000, $100,000 more than Minshew, and Mike Glennon's only making $50,000 more than Dobbs. So
they're all about the same.
Yeah, it's all between $655 and $880.
But it seems like we think though that Minshew is the clear number 1 starter, probably, right? Simply because he played for them last year and did pretty well.
Yeah, 14 games last season. It seems like he should have the starter job locked down, even though
especially without the competition that could develop in a preseason.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't usually draft a 6th-round guy to start unless there's an injury. So Minshew was that 6th-round guy last year, but Foles was the guy they had as a starter. And I think the Jaguars did not want to see him as their long-term starter. Partly because Minshew did so well, but partly also because I think maybe the most important quarterback for the Jaguars in the future is not on this list, and he's not even in the NFL right now. And that's Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback. Is this you think the Jaguars are tanking for Trevor?
It kind of looks that way. It's one of those unfortunate things with the NFL rules about having to play 3 years in college. I think they probably would have taken Lawrence directly if they could have after his freshman year, if they were eligible to do so.
Yeah, he was the kind of number 1 because Lawrence is one of those big guys. Also, he's like 6'6". He just sort of looks the part of the quarterback. Although recently some of his decision making has come into question with his. We talked about this off the air, but did you read any more about it? Trevor Lawrence proposing to his
oh no, yeah,
his
right.
middle school sweetheart.
Well, she's not currently in middle school though, so.
Well, yeah, she's also a college student, but he has been his girlfriend. She has been his girlfriend since middle school, and apparently they have not had any. He has not dated anybody else, and he is going to make millions and millions of dollars, and he has already proposed marriage to this young lady who also, I think, is a soccer player at some other college. But do you think this calls? This is something that I had heard on a radio show. Does this call Lawrence's decision making into question? And would you sort of waver now, thinking of him as a surefire number 1 overall pick if you think he's going to make this kind of decision? He didn't make the best decisions, for example, in the LSU championship game. He threw some picks. He didn't run maybe when he should have. He threw it when he should have. His team was not as sharp. He was not as sharp as he normally was.
I think it's more about loyalty, I think, at this point, right? So it's probably more confident for the team that drafts him that he's not going to, like, bail on him.
And then, just chase greener pastures elsewhere.
Right.
This is all. That's
like the Eli Manning type thing, and try to, like, break up with the team before they even got together.
That's exactly what Larry David would say as this wrestling. Did you see that episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry David trusted this guy because he was an inventor and he made a lot of money, but he was married to a fairly plain, kind of uglyish woman. Actually, and he thought, wow, this guy's he really keeps his word, because he stayed there. He stayed married to her, even though he could have done something much differently. So he decided he seemed like a trustworthy, good person. So that's what you would think about Trevor Lawrence then, that he.
Yeah. So I apparently take the Larry David philosophy on this issue.
Okay.
Do you agree, or are you in the other?
But is it something like, well, would Trevor Lawrence on the football field, would he lock onto his first receiver and not move away from that person because he decided to pick it first, and then not throw the open person? Would he throw more interceptions that way because he would be too loyal to?
Did he do that with wide receivers though? I mean, he actually had like NFL receivers.
Yeah, well, yeah. Clemson has had some great
Clemson
in the last few years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he would. I don't think it really matters. But I think it's a funny. But I think though that's what the Jaguars are probably doing, is looking at Trevor Lawrence, or thinking at least the next year's draft, because Minshew, again, if Minshew blossoms and becomes a great quarterback, I think that's a problem that they never expected to have, and they would be somewhat happy with Minshew possibly as, again, maybe they'd still draft somebody like Lawrence in the first round next year if they didn't do so well, and they could trade Minshew as a service.
So, well, do you think they would then, like, maybe almost tank Minshew's season specifically?
That's another thing too. Like, maybe we want to
win.
Maybe we want to look at Dobbs. Maybe we want to look at Luton. Maybe we want to see if Glennon has learned something. Maybe it's just a rotating cast as quarterback there. Do you think that's possible?
Four starts for each of them?
If Minshew starts okay, but then kind of fades, I think they're going to give him the hook and look for somebody else.
Well, you would think, though, if they're not doing well, then you'd want Minshew to play the whole season.
I think you don't want to be
they will continue to not be well.
I think you don't want to be overt about your tanking. You don't want to just have this guy and just, again, why not just hire some guy off the street? Why not hire Andrew Scaff or Mike Werman to be the quarterback? And we take that big contract, and we'd stand in the pocket maybe for a little while and get pummeled. But then they would see, well, obviously this team is not trying, and that would, Jacksonville has
you could make that argument based on this roster though too.
But Jacksonville has a very tenuous grasp on their fan base already. So I think they really want to seem like they're trying. And so, like, if Minshew's not very good, they're at least going to try the other quarterbacks, even though they don't think they're going to be as good or just as bad. But at least you're doing something. It seems like you're busy and you're doing something that's possibly trying to make the situation better, even if you really aren't. You're just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. but you're at least rearranging the deck chairs, whereas you're not just kind of standing there and letting it run as the iceberg. So I could see Dobbs get a couple starts. I could see Luton. I could see Glennon, or I could see Minshew being solid. But I'm not really sure what to make of the Jaguars. What is your sense?
Well, I think Minshew's the clear starter, and I think Glennon's the clear number 2. Like, I don't think they'd bring him in if they didn't plan on having him be Minshew's backup. But yeah, it's really tough though. I do think they're planning on drafting high, like they want to draft high. But I could see them like making an excuse.
Because they're trading away. They traded away all their defensive talent. They got rid of AJ Bouye, Jalen Ramsey last year. I think they're accumulating draft picks. This is the Houston Astros kind of approach.
So maybe they want to try to trade talent if they can, even at the quarterback position, because they're very inexpensive. But they can't do well either. So if Minshew actually is okay, I could see them pulling him so they can't make the team better.
Yeah, that would be. That was kind of what happened with the Dolphins last year, because the Dolphins, it seemed like, were tanking for Tua. And they were trying they were trying to lose as many games possible. But then it turned out Fitzpatrick was actually kind of good at times. Again, so they got rid of Rosen because they were losing all the games with Rosen anyway. So they brought Fitzpatrick in. But then, of course, Tua got hurt, and so he dropped back farther in the draft. And so they still got Tua. But it's
despite beating like New England late in the season.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic. I think they do want to lose, and I think it seems like for a while it seemed like Jacksonville was a team that wanted to move. They wanted to move to Los Angeles. Maybe they still think of moving to St. Louis or London or someplace. But yeah, I think
this has to be the least predictable of the teams with like how many games go where.
I like the idea of Joshua Dobbs I think he's an interesting prospect. He was the highest draft pick of the youngest guys. Lennon was a 3rd-round pick. Dobbs was a 4th-round pick. But Dobbs also has a running threat to him that Minshew doesn't. Minshew can kind of scramble. I think Luton maybe can do the same, but Glennon not really. But like Dobbs was a good runner and a good passer at Tennessee. But again, it hasn't translated so much to the NFL. So but I think maybe you want to give him another chance too. But I think you bring in Glennon as the steadying influence to be the backup. But then you draft this guy in the 6th round too, who you think, we're going to take a flyer on him.
Yeah.
But they traded a 5th-round pick to get Dobbs, who was a 4th-round pick. So that was last year too. So it's hard to say what they want to do. I could see them getting rid of Glennon even and keeping the 3 young guys, because what does Glennon bring? He has no upside probably at this point.
Yeah, they're all potentially cut or traded, I think, in a season. But
I think Minshew's the only one you can't really do that because he had a little bit of track record of success and like got people interested in the team, even though the team was terrible last year. So,
but you don't want to ruin that buzz that he got either. So you don't want him to be terrible.
That's true.
But you still want the team to lose. So it's such a weird spot to be in. But if he's not the quarterback of the future,
but
try to keep the fans interested until you can.
But maybe it's the fact that they traded away all their defensive talent. They want their defense to just give up games. So even if the offense is very good, the defense will always blow it. And so at least you'll have an exciting. I think that's the best way to lose, is to at least have an exciting offense and a bad defense.
Well, it looks like you're trying.
You're not losing every game like 10-3. You're losing every game 31 to 24 or something. And I think that's a much more exciting recipe for losses than the let's just make our offense terrible. I think making the defense terrible, again, if we have to have one of the bad, but a good offense, again, sometimes a very good offense can carry a bad defense. Sometimes a very good defense can carry a bad offense. But the more exciting, having a good offense is more exciting to bring in people, though. And I'd say more happily frustrating than the other way around. Because if you have a great defense and the offense is just terrible, I think you're madder than if you have a great offense. Because at least they're putting on a good show.
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess maybe it's just my personality. I'd rather see offense than defense usually.
Sure, of course.
Um,
So what do you have for the 3 and 4? I think we both agree Minshew 1, Glennon 2. You have Dobbs Luton or Luton Dobbs?
I think Dobbs then Luton.
I think I'll say Luton Dobbs.
Luton Dobbs. Okay.
And where do the starts go? Think Minshew goes the whole season?
No, either injury or just trying a different something or other. He hits a wall. It's sophomore. Sophomore slump sometimes hits. I don't think again there was a reason Minshew was a 6th round pick. Again, unless Tom Brady was a 6th round pick too, I guess so. But I think Minshew, I think, can be a good player. I would say he starts a few games early and maybe gets a couple games late. So I'm gonna say Minshew gets 6 starts.
Oh, you're going low. He did get 14 appearances last year.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Glennon gets 4 starts.
Oh, you're really spreading it around.
Yeah, I'm gonna spread this around. I'm gonna say Dobbs gets 4 starts. And I'm gonna say Luton gets 2 starts. I'm gonna say all 4 of them get starts this year because I think they want to see what they have before they draft somebody. And also, I don't think I think this is a developmental year because I don't think they want to waste a draft pick on Luton. I don't think they want to waste the draft pick they traded for Dobbs. And I also don't think they want to waste this idea that they signed Mike Glennon as a person either. So, and they also have Minshew already. So I think they want to start. I don't know. That's what I would do kind of if I knew I was going to lose. But if so yes, I have 6, 4, 4, 2.
All right.
That's great.
I think Minshew will get some more. I think he started 14 games last year, or played in 14 games. I guess I don't know how many starts he had.
12 starts last year.
12 starts, okay. Well, I'll say maybe he gets like 10 starts this year. But I'll say Glennon only gets 2. And then let's just go ahead and give 2 to Dobbs and Luton. I'll follow your model.
2 each.
2 each, yeah.
You go 10, 2, 2.
10, and then 3 2s.
10, 2, 2, 2. Okay. I think that's
it does make sense that you would try to spread those around just to see what they've got.
Yeah. Probably now Minshew's going to light it up and lead the team to like a 7-9 season until they'll be out of the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes and never be able to rebuild really. But maybe they'll say Minshew is a good quarterback of the future. So I can see that. I don't see him as a future star, but I think he's entertaining and I think he's got a great personality. I don't think he's probably that much different maybe than Baker Mayfield in terms of physical talent, but who knows? I think Mayfield probably has a better big arm than Minshew, but I think a lot of what Baker has is swagger.
One of these days, you're going to have to do the Minshew for the show.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
If he wins like his first 4 games of the season, then you should have to do that as something like that. If he gets more than 6 starts, week 7 or 8, depending on where their bye week is,
more than 6 starts. Yeah, so that would be totally wrong. Yeah, I could do that.
That seems like that should be fair, right?
That sounds fine. Whatever.
If he tops your prediction,
my meager prediction. Yeah, he's gonna chalk this up as bulletin board material. Morning Track Power Hour always said I was gonna start 6 games.
What? Those guys.
He must be our 5th subscriber.
Yeah. It's deep in the recesses of YouTube.
Well, he would be after this. We've probably talked about him more than with the Jaguars quarterback situation more than any
Jacksonville
natives. I'm sure there's some Jacksonville version of us that we're just like teal and got Jaguar heads and things like that. And they have they're like the Chicago super fans from the Saturday Night Live.
Yes, I hope it's like that every year.
What do you think of the Jags this year? Minshew. Well, I think we made our way through the AFC South pretty thoroughly, but also expeditiously. Do we think? So, what are our predictions for the AFC South this year? Do you think the same order as last year? think that's more likely than the NFC South.
Yeah, probably. I think Houston is the class of the division, and then who cares almost for the rest of it.
I think it depends on how healthy Tannehill stays, and Henry. If those two stay healthy the whole year, I think their team is very good. But I think also maybe their team can be figured out. But I mean, maybe they're better than Indianapolis still, depending on how Rivers does. And the Colts seemed so much optimism 2 years ago in Indianapolis, and that's kind of gone away. And
it looked like Luck was finally healthy.
Yeah, but then he says, "Well, I'm going to be healthy in my retirement," and we'll see years later.
It's too many injuries.
Yeah, and Minch, then Jaguars are really not playing for this year, so I think they're a clear 4.
But they could be the most surprising of the teams, though, if they're not purposefully.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's and with that 7th playoff spot in the AFC, 8-8 is not going to be as out of the question as a playoff team.
Right.
So, I don't think
it's possible that there's a 7-9 team makes the playoffs with a 7 team.
Yeah, especially if there's a lot of top-heavy teams in the AFC. Like if the Chiefs and Ravens and Patriots or something are all like 14-2.
And Houston too, maybe.
I think Houston is. I think Houston might be the 3rd best team in the AFC. I think top to bottom, I think they're a little bit better than New England. All right, Andrew. Well, that's the end of that chapter. So we're halfway through our NFL quarterback situation previews, and it seems like the next half is going to be even more exciting, or just as exciting as the first half, I hope, where we're going to work on the AFC and NFC North. Is that our next?
I think so. Yeah.
Our next project. We're moving our way somewhat west to east, and our producers again are having a heart attack because we have spent so much time and given you so much information, our loyal dear viewers, about these situations and about our opinions on these situations, that how can we give away all this stuff for free? But we do, because we're idiots and we enjoy this sort of thing. And so with that, as always, he is Andrew Scaff. I'm Mike Werman. We are the Warning Track Power Hour. Please continue to watch and like and subscribe our YouTube channel, and we will see you on the flip side. See you later. How was that?
I like the flip side. I wasn't expecting that. That caught me off guard.
It's a little different. I nailed that one. It was
great. Yes. Yeah, just being caught off guard is what made it perfect.
I was thinking of David Putty. In the car dealership episode.
That's good.
High five on the flip side.
On the flip side. Great.
Okay. Well, this only took 5 hours.